Shut the front door! What do you mean I got lost in the mail? What? What are you talking about? You gotta be freaking kidding me. Saint anger around my neck. Frickin' hackers, come on! You mad, bro? I'm good, I promise. Well, welcome to Faith Evolved. This is Jay, your spiritual INTJ. And the topic of today's video is, you guessed it, anger. And it's something, I'll be honest with you, I struggle with it more than any other emotion. I know maybe it's a guy thing, or maybe it's just, how I grew up, how I was treated, but I tend to project a lot of anger when things aren't going my way. And it's probably the last battle I'm going to ever overcome in my life. But I get irritable, cranky, moody, especially if I haven't had my coffee in the morning. If something doesn't go my way, like I get told that something's going to cost more than I expected, or get bad news. I just don't handle it well, and I'm self-aware of it, and I'm working on it. But it's hard, And what really kind of almost kicked me while I was down a little bit was finding out that there's no justification, nothing good about anger. It literally always gets in the way of communication, relationships, families, in the workplace, out in the community, out in public. It just never ever helps. But what I'm going to say actually is going to contradict that a little bit. Is that there is a point in which it can be useful. Not necessarily a justification for it, but there are some uses for it that I found that actually can be helpful. Now, bear with me here, because I'm going to read here from the Urantia book and A Course in Miracles, two of my favorite spiritual resources, and what they have to say about it. And it seems unequivocal where they stand on it. It says right here in A Course in Miracles, this is from T-6, anger always involves projection of separation, which must ultimately be accepted as one's own responsibility, rather than being blamed on others. You cannot be attacked. Attack is no justification, and you are responsible for what you believe. And basically it's getting at how it's in your mind, how you interpret things. You feel like you're being attacked, but you're really attacking yourself when you have anger. Same thing with unforgiveness. You're holding yourself hostage. You're taking the poison, expecting the other person to get sick and die from it. Another part here in T-30 says, anger is never justified. Attack has no foundation. It is here escape from fear begins and will be made complete. Now, remember that last sentence I just read there, because that's where I'm going to tap into a little piece of this. So, like I said, anger, no justification. It's, one of the things that A Course in Miracles harps on. Same thing with the Urantia book. I'm just going to read a very small piece from paper 149 out of the Urantia book, where there's a whole, you can go to truthbook.com and look up the topical studies on anger, and it's, there's tons of sections that talk about it. But the biggest one here is from paper 149. It says, anger indicates your lack of tolerant brotherly love, plus your lack of self-respect and self-control. Anger depletes the health, debases the mind, and handicaps the spirit teacher of man's soul. So it's a roadblock to your spiritual progress. And I'm well aware of that. I'm aware of that being part of the reason why I've only come so far with my spiritual growth, and I need to work on forgiveness and transmuting anger, probably to acceptance. Speaking of that, have you ever seen the, I did a little Google search here for the enlightenment chart. It's called the Hawkins Scale, and it shows the frequencies from, the alpha point all the way up to the omega point. And the bottom of the frequency scale has, fear-based frequencies such as shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire. As you work your way up, you're into anger, pride, courage, and then you're getting into more of a flow state with neutrality, willingness, acceptance. And then as you get more enlightened and more conscious, you get into the love frequencies such as reason, love, joy, peace, and ultimately you expand to enlightenment. And what I'd like to say here is that although there is no justification for anger, there is a solid use for it. And as one person said, it's the lesser of two evils, meaning, obviously shame and guilt being the worst evil of anger. So while there is no justification for anger, it can be useful for two reasons. One, to show you, basically as something to show you your triggers. Like, what am I responding to? Why am I angry? What is happening here? What is about this situation or this person that's causing me to freak out and lash out and get all butthurt and upset? So that to me is maybe not so obvious to some people, but it's probably one of the the biggest tools that anger can be used for. But I will give you a second one, and that's to get out of these lower vibrations. There's been many times where I get stuck for hours, days, even weeks in a place of guilt and shame, just depression, anxiety, existential, anxiety and depression, where my life was falling apart, going through a dark night of the soul, and just feeling stuck there. And sometimes I would get a little higher up, like grief or fear, maybe desire. But I find it interesting that anger is higher up in the scale than even desire and fear. Why? Because it can be used as a rung to get from a lower vibration to a higher vibration. When I was dealing with the worst depression and anxiety I could possibly ever imagine a human being could experience, wouldn't wish it on the worst of my enemies. And sometimes I would just get angry. Angry at myself, angry at the situation, angry at what I'm allowing to, pull me down, angry at, just everything that was just crushing me down. And it was almost like an act of like defiance towards just all the hell that I was going through. And in that situation, it could be used as a stepping stone to get out of these low vibrations of guilt and shame and apathy up into, at least acceptance and courage. Honestly, I think anger is, if you look at it from, going, getting worse, it's an attack. It's, going into guilt and shame, because eventually that's what you're going to feel when you have anger. But it can also be hope disguised, because really what anger eventually goes to is pride and courage, So use that anger, transmute it into courage, because that's what I had to do many times. When I was in a deep pit of despair, I had to no, I'm not going to stay like this. No, I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to, stay stuck. I can fight my way out of this, And eventually you have to get up to the point of acceptance, because that's really where the baseline is acceptance. Accepting what's happening and letting go of, your interpretation of it, or letting go of the negative, thoughts that you have, or stories that you have about what's going on in your life or what you're going through. It's like you can use it as a way to get out of these really pit of despair vibrations that you can experience. So for me, in an attempt to not contradict, the fact that anger is bad, ultimately, it can be used to get you out of much worse, states of being. Use it as a way to, have hope. That anger that you have is really your soul telling you that you deserve better, that you can, get out of this mess, that you're worth it. You said almost like a righteous wrath in a sense towards your self-worth, and use it to have a little bit of, pride, not like egotistical pride, but pride, that you are, a worthy person. And it goes up to courage, have the courage to believe that you can get better, neutrality, willingness, willing to, do the work and the self-care, and then up your way to acceptance, realizing that, the more you fight, what you persist what you resist shall persist. See, that's a tongue twister. So anyways, again, hopefully this comes across as, helpful and not as, being contradictory to the Urantia book and A Course in Miracles. There is a place for anger if it's used correctly. Not to justify your behavior or to justify lashing out, but to transmute it into courage, willingness, and acceptance. And eventually, once you get there, then you'll have a baseline to work with, and you'll see your progress, and then you'll have more hope that you can actually get even to higher levels of vibration. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. God bless.